congratulatory remarks. The Northwest Ceramics Foundation is grateful for and acknowledges that it operates on land that is the unceded, shared traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We stand in solidarity with all communities marginalized due to race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or age, and commit ourselves to opposing racism in all of its forms. For those not currently on our mailing list, we encourage you to go to our website, www.nwcf.ca. At the top of every page, there is a blue button. If you click on that, you will be taken to a form that allows you to sign up to receive our emails about upcoming events. All of our talks are free and open to all, but any on Zoom require registration. For the duration of the talk, we ask you to mute yourselves and turn off your videos. This will improve transmission. At the end of the talk, we will have a discussion period during which you can turn your video back on if you wish. You can type questions into the chat function at the bottom of your screen or ask to be recognized during the discussion period. Please note, this talk is being recorded. We will post our talk on our website, where you will also find links to recordings of all of our other Zoom presentations. It is my very great pleasure today to introduce our speaker, Denis Lonchamps. An art consultant and appraiser with more than 25 years of experience in the fine art, decorative arts, and craft fields, Denis was, until July 2025, the executive director and chief curator at the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery. From 2013 to 2018, he was the artistic director and chief curator at the Art Gallery of Burlington. He received his PhD in art history in 2009 from Concordia University. He has taught art and craft history at Concordia University, York University, and at Dawson College. He has contributed essays, articles, and reviews to magazines and journals such as Espace Sculpture, Ceramics Monthly, and Ceramics Art and Perception. And he was the publisher and managing editor of Cahiers Métiers d'Art Craft Journal from 2006 to 2016. In 2020, Denis received the Craft Ontario John and Barbara Mather Award for Lifetime Achievement, and in 2023, he received the Barbara A. Tyler Award in Museum Leadership from the Canadian Museum Association. I won't detail his many curatorial projects here, as we hope to hear him talk about them today. Please welcome Denis Lonchamps.
Thank you, Amy. So I'll just share my screen first. Can everybody see that and hear me properly? All good? Okay. So when Amy approached me, she asked me to talk about my career and how did I get to craft, and at the same time have a look at the ceramic today and where I think we are going. So it was a big mandate. But I put together this presentation, which I hope will answer a few of the questions. So, okay, my slides are not changing. Here we go. So, my grandmother was a weaver and a quilter, so she always talked about the importance of craft. And I had an uncle who was collecting the Saint-Jean-Port-Joli wood sculptures. So I did, as I grew up, have access to some craft. But I then decided to go to Cégep and study in accounting. And a few months before graduating, I realized that that was not the path that I should take. So I decided to become a floral designer. And I had my own shop for 7 years. And when I had my own shop, I used to get pots and vases from a local ceramic artist. Then I sold the business after 7 years and I came to Toronto to learn English. And that's working with a colleague who went back to school at York University and kind of influenced me to consider that as an option. So that's what I did. And after completing my BA, I decided to go to Ceramics Monthly. And that was a BFA in visual art at York University, I decided to go and do an MA and eventually a PhD at Concordia. Interestingly, when I was doing my BFA, I was talking about maybe orienting my career towards craft and fine crafts and decorative arts. And the professor told me that there was absolutely no career in that field. So I ended up studying historical Canadian art. But still, as I was doing my MA, I got an occasion to curate craft, and that kind of set that path into motion. In 2000, I started to write and publish exhibition reviews. And at some point, I ended up working for the Conseil des métiers d'art du Québec, the Quebec Craft Council. And I was curating my first contemporary art exhibition at the McLaren in Barrie, Ontario. And the director of the Conseil des métiers d'art asked me if I would consider curating craft. And that's how I got my first exhibition in craft. I do love to write. I do, but there was not a lot of place to publish, and that's what led me to create Cahiers Métiers d'Art. Overall, I curated or co-curated uh, more than 65 exhibitions, mostly on craft and fine craft. I published over 135 articles, reviews, essays, and magazines, books, catalog, and journals. And while I was the executive director at the Clay and Glass Gallery, I was inspired to take a course in art appraisals that led me to this new steps in my career. So I do have some forthcoming publishing coming up. The first one is called Coming Up, exhibiting Queer Craft, the Wood Editor in the Politics of Global Craft, which is supposed to come out November, December this year. And then Voices, case studies in creating a more inclusive home for craft, editors by Helene Chisley Patterson and Molly Claire Gillette. And the book is titled Craft and Home Making, Place and the Domestic. So in those articles, in the first one, queer, uh, coming out exhibiting queer craft, I discuss the work of Julian Miolix, who is transgender, and explore issues of his transition from female to male. And in the other publication, Voices, I discuss the work of Marissa Alexander, for example, who create this very tall vase, double-walled, with a dynamic composition that invite the viewer to kind of circulate all around. So as I mentioned, I did publish Cahiers Métiers d'Art, a craft journal for 8 full volumes on 9 years, 2 issues per year. All issues are bilingual. On the cover of the first issue, we had Sin Ying Ho, who was discussed in an essay by Penny Burton called Tradition in Flux. Other publication that I did in the academic world, An Impression of Déjà Vu, Craft, the Visual Arts, and the Need to Get Sloppy. And on the cover, it's a piece by Laurent Crass, and I don't discuss Laurent's work as being sloppy, but as an example of skills, de-skilling and reskilling. As Amy mentioned, I curated a lot in craft and fine craft, and I will discuss ceramics as part of the exhibition I did. So I thought it was bringing both ideas together. So my first exhibition was called a retrospective of the François Houdet Award, Looks on the Future. The François Houdet Award is an award for emerging artists in the field of craft that is given in Quebec, the province of Quebec. And that is still going on to this day. But in 1996, I was asked to do kind of a retrospective. 2003, sorry, I was asked to do a retrospective of the first 10 years of the prize winners. And the exhibition was to travel in Brouage, France. So I took the challenge. The request from the Quebec Craft Council was that I wrote a grant to get funding for the exhibition. If we got the grant, I was going to France with the exhibition, and if we didn't get the grant, only the exhibition would travel. Needless to say, I took 3 courses to find out how to write grants, and I did get the money, so I ended up going to Brouage. Brouage is an old fort from the 16th century, and the little village there has been turned into a craft hubs in France. And we exhibited there in a building called La Tonnellerie. And the ceramic person who was there was Pascal Girardin. Pascal has now an international career. She does very large scale installation in hotel and restaurants and stores all over the world, literally. Shortly after that, I was asked if I would curate an exhibition for the 50th anniversary of the Salon des Métiers d'Art du Québec. And the person who was doing it at first had health issues and couldn't continue with the contract. So I was asked in June if I could deliver for December 1st. So short time to do a research on 50 years of craft in Quebec, but I took the challenge and we published at the same time with the Édition Fides an agenda, which is on your left, and a catalog for the exhibition, which is on the right. And the exhibition was taken over after that by the Musée des Maîtres et Artisans du Québec and was presented there until March 2006. As part of the ceramics that we looked at in the exhibition, there was Cueillet Bonneau, who joined together design, ergonomy, aesthetics, and the teapot that's there was very, very successful in 1976 at a fair in New York. And they received so many orders that they decided to contact Céramique de Beauce to kind of produce the teapot. And then Louise Bousquet, which I always found fascinating, went in, has a studio from 1975 on, but eventually decided to go and study porcelain and how porcelain is made in Limoges, France, in 1998. And after multiple research, she started a company called Porcelain Bousquet in 2002, which at the last news was still in operation today. And the other bowl is a fantastic double-walled bowl by Guy Simoneau. Then with a colleague at Concordia, Elaine Chisley Patterson, we decided to do a small exhibition called Recrafting Tradition, where we invited the artists to look at tradition and present their contemporary interpretation on tradition. And I also organized with Catherine Auriol and Marco Savard from Gaia Ceramics on Laurier Street, a festival of ceramics that lasted for 3 days on Laurier Street. And we had a small exhibition looking at the bowl as an element of ceramics. I eventually, Seven Stick was a fair that was organized by Jacques Marceau in Mystic in the Eastern Township, and he invited me to curate an exhibition on Jacques Garnier. He wanted to start a foundation that would give bursary on design for ceramic artists who wanted to pursue design as a study. And it was a very interesting research. Jacques Garnier is a very important ceramist in Quebec. And the tea set that is on the right is one that was created by Jacques and won the National Award from the Tea Council of Canada. And after that success, Jacques decided to ask Céramique de Beauce to produce the tea set. A few more exhibitions that I curated through the years. One that was very educational for me was to do the art of ceramic technique with Suzanne Surette, who is a ceramic artist herself, for a display cabinet in the Department of Art History at Concordia. And with Suzanne teaching me all about the techniques was quite of an eye-opener at that time, and to see that it's not just one way of doing things, but that there's multiple ways to engage with ceramics. And then I did the Biennale Internationale du Lait de Portneuf in 2009. I eventually ended up in Japan with the work of Lisette Savaria. And then Sheila, sorry, Perry invited me. She was a director at the Rooms Provincial Art Gallery in Newfoundland and invited me to curate an exhibition where we presented the work of Jason Hawley in ceramic. And the photo there is actually the work of Jason, and it's called Emerging. And it was part of the exhibition Crafting Paradox. Cal Lane is a metal artist, and John Goodyear was a wood artist. And then eventually I ended up working full time at the Rooms in Newfoundland. And that brought me to do a national call in collaboration with the Craft Council of Newfoundland and Labrador for an exhibition called Boxed In, where we presented the work of, if I remember correctly, 35 artists from all across Canada. From there, I moved on to the Art Gallery of Burlington. And the Art Gallery of Burlington has one of the largest collection of ceramics, Canadian ceramics, contemporary Canadian ceramics. And that's what was the attraction for me there. And when I got there, 2013, the first thing I did was to familiarize myself with the collection. And there was this amazing piece by Viktor Szyczynski called The Garden Ruins that he did in 1986. And I thought, okay, we need to present that piece. It's quite stunning. So we decided to do an exhibition around the idea of the garden. So there's a glass artist, the tall pieces in the back are by Susan Rankin. And we can see a little bit in the back, one of her vase with flowers all around. And then the paintings were by Claudette Lausier, Wayne Moore, and Victoria Pierce, who are all members of the Burlington Fine Arts Guild that is in Burlington. As an aside, the Art Gallery of Burlington does have 6 guilds that all have their studio there. So the community, the craft community is very vibrant, as well as the fine arts community. Always from the collection, it was almost like a treasure trove for me. We decided to do an exhibition called Coast to Coast to Coast that looked at ceramics in Canada from one coast to the other. And it was a very interesting exhibition. Among other pieces, we presented the work of Carol Hepp, who, to the best of their knowledge, from 2013. Amélie Proulx, Jardinier Mécanique, also from 2013. Those were recent acquisitions. And of course, we had acquisitions since the beginning that they started to collect. And eventually, I met a few people, Emma Quinn, who was at the time at Craft Ontario, who is now the director at the Art Gallery of Burlington, Sandra Alfoldi. I met Sandra in 1999 when I arrived at Concordia. There was a special breakfast done for people interested in craft, and that was kind of a pivoting moment for me, and we became very close friends. And at some point at a conference in Ottawa, Sandra said, "Okay, we need to introduce you to somebody." So we tried to make it happen, but Sandra had all her students following, and she was trying to get a moment where we could have some privacy. So eventually, she introduced me to Juliette MacDonald for the Edinburgh College of Art, and we decided to do a project called Naked Craft. The title comes from the fact that Juliette, Sandra, and Emma discuss the project at first in a hot tub in a spa somewhere in the vicinity of Ottawa. But eventually we kept it because we wanted to look at craft from both country, Canada and Scotland, because both countries were above a superpower. In our case, the United States, in their case, Britain. And we wanted to see if there was similarities and difference and so on. So it became a very big project. It started with a residency, so we sent five Canadian makers to Lumsden in Scotland, where they met five makers from Scotland. And they worked together for a week, and the the result and the synergy that was happening kind of indicated that we needed to repeat it. So we decided to do a residency at the Art Gallery of Burlington, again with five Canadian artists, five Scottish artists, and an exhibition with 10 artists of each countries. And the exhibition was presented first at the Art Gallery of Burlington with a small symposium. And then the project seems to be just rolling and gathering funding and gathering interest. So it was presented at Materia in Quebec City and at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia in Halifax. Then it moved to Scotland, where it was presented in five different venues. There was a symposium at the Edinburgh College of Art. And at the same time, we were invited by the Canadian Craft Federation to participate in their annual conference in Quebec City and to be the main event of their conference. So that was a very large project. And in terms of ceramics, I brought only two examples because I tend to put way too much slide and we'll still be here at 8 o'clock but tonight, but my time. I'm in Ontario. So, but I did present an example here of Kevin Andrew Morris from Scotland, who was looking at his identity with his family and his genealogy through letters from his grandfathers, and Clint Neufeld from Canada. This goddamn thing never worked the way it was supposed to. 2014, who was also participating in one of our residency. The A big moment in my career was in 2017. I was working with an artist. We were supposed to open an exhibition in September, and in June, for health reasons, the artist pulled out. So I've got this big gallery in Burlington with absolutely nothing to present and 3 months to figure it out. And sometimes I do believe that the universe does take good care of me in a way because I was, the phone rang not shortly after I got the cancellation, and it was collectors from Burlington who invited me to go with them to a special presentation at York University. And I decided to go because I needed a change of mind. And as I'm getting into their car, we start to chat, and I told them that I had this cancellation and I had only 3 months to figure it out. How do I fill the gallery? And they invited me after the presentation at York to go to their home and to see their collection. And if there was anything of interest, they would gladly lend it to us to fill the gallery. So that's when I became acquainted with their collection of ceramics from Rankin and Lat. Rankin and Lat had a gallery called the Matchbox Gallery, and who had all the equipment to do ceramics. They had a kiln, and of course they ordered the ceramics from down south, which makes the ceramics expensive, but they still did it. They got support, and there's quite a few people from the community that went to the gallery and learned to do and work with ceramics. And they did. It turned out to be probably one of the best exhibition I put together in such a short time notice. I think we can see closer here some of the work. Uh, it's amazing work. Eventually, Sherry Boyle will work with a couple of the artists and bring them to Mid-Alta and also do an exhibition with them that circulated for quite some time. Uh, Unfortunately, as far as I know by now, the gallery is still not operating anymore. And we tried to see if we could revive it and restart it because there's really some very great talent there that would just need to have access to the material and to the tools to continue to work and do magnificent work. Interestingly, for that exhibition, we had 5 videos that look at artists working, and one of them was mute and deaf, and so the video had absolutely no sound, so that we can see and understand and what's the creation surrounding like. Uh, the 5 video were stunning, listening to the artists talking about their work and what it meant to them was quite uh, stunning. I'm always interested at all forms of ceramics, from production ware all the way to the more sculptural and more conceptual ware. So we did a couple of exhibition again from the collection, one called Kitchenware from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. On the photo, the teapot with the 2 cups is by Ruth Gaddy McKinley. The other pot beside it with the cover is by Bodil Pearson. And then for eventually, while we were at Materia in Quebec City, invited by the Canadian Craft Federation to participate in their symposium, we also participated in their meeting the next day. And I was at a table, and we were talking about what do we do for 2017, which was coming up 2 years later. And I just said, would there be an appetite uh, for a biennial in craft? And the people around that table thought that it was a great idea if we could make it happen. So we did make it happen. I partner again with Emma Quinn from the Craft Ontario, and we organized uh, the biennial. The biennial had a local sorry, a local exhibition, and that was Setting Ontario's Table Once Upon a Time. And it's a historical look at how the play started in Ontario all the way to today, but mostly tableware. On the front page of the catalog, you have a piece again by Ruth Gaddy McKinley, who was an amazing designer. We also had an international guest, somebody we had a committee. The committee suggested some names. Anton Reinders from the Netherlands was selected. I went and met with Anton in Amsterdam, and then we discussed a work that he could do for this project. He decided to look at to make a large installation, and you have the full installation on the right. His interest in research was to uh, reference the history of ceramics. So there's a functional vase, there's the architectural finials, there's decorative still life, there's abstracts form, but at the same time to look at Descartes' dualistic approach between mind and body and rationality and emotion as being separate entities. And he brought that all together in an installation that was called Descartes Error 2 from 2017, which was specifically created for that project. We also had a national exhibition, and for this, I just brought that piece because it's a stunning piece. It was quite large, 9 feet by 9 feet, by Suzanne Surette, who was paying a tribute to the lakes and mountains of the Eastern Township where she lives, bringing multiple elements into play, but at the same time referencing murals that used to be very popular in the 60s and 70s as public art, but was kind of forgotten by 2017. And I think, if I remember correctly, Suzanne did her PhD eventually looking at mural artists in ceramics across Canada. I do like collaboration, uh, and I did have quite a few. But in the meantime, I talked earlier about Laurent Crasse, so we presented some of his work in 2017 in an exhibition called Épuration. We did a teapot exhibition to celebrate the 40 years anniversary of the gallery with 40 teapots from the collection. And the cover of the catalog that we have here is called Dialogue. I mentioned earlier the guilds that have a home at the Art Gallery of Burlington. So we decided to partner with the Burlington Inn Weavers and Spinners Guild, who was also celebrating their 60th anniversary. And at the same time, it was the 35th anniversary of the permanent collection. And as I mentioned already, the 40th anniversary of the Art Gallery of Burlington. So we partner uh, with them and we pulled out 40 pieces from the collection and invite 40 of the weavers to create a piece based on the piece that they would select from the collection. And at the same time, the Art Gallery of Burlington used to, because I don't know if they still do it, I've been gone for 6 years now, but they used to every year buy a setting place uh, for a table from an artist because it was important for them that production work was included in the collection as well as the sculptural work. So we did ask the weavers to create placemat that would go well with each of the dining set that we had in the collection at that time. So it was a very interesting dialogue between weavers and ceramic artists and to organize all this project. It was a nice way for me to close my time at the Art Gallery of Burlington before moving to the Clay and Glass Gallery. So at the Clay and Glass Gallery, uh, again, very interesting collection there. The Art Gallery of Burlington has over 4,000 pieces of ceramics in their collection. The Clay and Glass is a younger institution. Uh, and they have by now, by the time I left, 1,400 pieces. So when I arrived, I looked at the collection again, and I thought there was lots of pieces that were inspired by animals of all kinds. So we did a bestiary exhibition, and that same year, uh, I had lots of questions about collecting clay or glass. So I invited four collectors to come and present their collection. There was two in glass and two in ceramics. And again, that was very popular. People were able to see all kinds of things that you can collect. And I always wanted to do a project with Gaye Bono, which I been knowing for 25 years now. And I thought I'll invite them to come and do something. And we decided to look at their process. So their process always start by a drawing, then they do a prototype, then eventually they create a production of the pieces. So we had drawings, we had molds, and we had some finished pieces for that exhibition, which was very interesting. We also have a courtyard at the Clay and Glass Gallery, and I wanted to use the courtyard as an exhibition space. So we invited Junie Kim to come and do a special installation for the courtyard. She did an amazing job creating really a space because she engaged with the whole space. Exploring identity and cultural influences that comes into her work. Did many residencies and from inspired by those residencies that she did around the world, then she bring in her own identity and explored that theme. Then COVID hit. That changed all your plans and probably all your plans as well. But for the gallery, we ended up having to rethink our programming. Some artists didn't have access anymore to their studio. So we did an exhibition called In Concert where we invited couples and families working together in concert, sharing a studio and working together uh, to come and do an exhibition. Then we went with the uh, gallery gallery's collection and we did nature inspired exhibition where people were inspired by the landscape and the trees and the plants that is around them. We also did an exhibition, Garden of Gods, with Nicola Voshvoda Patty. And then Confine came after couple of artists called me, one of them really panicking because she had nothing to look forward to. She didn't know when she was going to have access to her studio again. And she literally asked me, "Can you put an exhibition in your programs so that I know that I've got something to look forward to?" So that gave us the idea to send a call all across Canada and ask the artists what was their response to the confinement. And beside you have the cover of the catalog with a piece by Janet Pennebaker. It's all glass work, and it was the title is "This Tea is Cancelled," which was quite interesting because we do every year a tea party to raise funds for the gallery, and of course our tea party was canceled, so we decided to use her piece. And I also brought piece by Nicola Vojvoda for that was in her exhibition. She had a whole series of plates, and they're fairly large, I would say 15 inches wide and maybe 12 inches uh, in depth of plates looking at poisonous plants and the beauty of those poisonous plants. So that was a very interesting exhibition. So then, uh, at the same time as COVID, there's lots of talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's racism seems to be going up. Hate crime seems to be going up. So we decided to do an exhibition called Voices, where we wanted to give voices to those who usually don't have a voice or are not heard or are kept out of the mainstream discussions. And we selected the work of 40 artists. The cover of the catalog that you have on the right has plates that were decorated by personalities. So we invited 27 personalities of the region and in Canada, including the Honorable Adrienne Clarkson, who used to be Governor General of Canada, the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario at the time, Elizabeth Dodswell, other personalities of the political fields, both local, regional, provincial, and also musicians and art and cultural leaders to come and decorate a plate. If they felt that they didn't have the talent for it, they could give us a concept that we would create for them and then eventually realize as a plate. The plates were all installed on a wall with a table at the front where the visitors could take their place at the table by filling up a card and giving us their ideas on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and take their place at the table by leaving their card behind so that their voice would be heard within the exhibition. Matthias Osterman was a very important ceramic. He published 3 books, and most of his work is about decorated surfaces. So with Peter Flannery, I co-curated an exhibition called The Decorated Surface, where we invited other artists to answer and to be part of this kind of exhibition as an homage to the work of Matthias Osterman, who had passed away in 2009. We presented the work of Carol Hepp, Deborah Kuzik, and Ray Mackey, who were known as Lucky Rabbit, Richard Munn, Karen Pavey, and Jim Smith. A very successful exhibition that led to multiple discussion on surface decoration. We had some workshop organized, inviting people to come and discover that. We also did an exhibition called A Living Palette, inviting 5 women artists to talk to us about their inspiration from nature. And we've got quite a variety of approach, going from the microscopic uh, organism all the way to plants and seed pods by Judy Blake. So at the front of this photo, you have 3 different seed pods by Judy Blake, which is just stunning sculpture. And the piece in the back with the metal ring at the top is by Jess Riva Cooper. Recently, just before I left, actually the opening was in September, we did Beyond the Threshold. After we did Voices, well, before that, when I arrived at the Clay and Glass Gallery, in the first winter I was there, at some point I arrived one morning and one of the door was covered with a piece of plywood. And I inquired to the security what happened. And it's actually a homeless man who broke the window and got in the gallery. He didn't touch anything. He didn't do anything wrong. All what he wanted was a warm place to sleep. So when the police arrived there, they found him in a corner, wrapped up and against the wall and just sleeping. And I thought, okay, we need to do something about homelessness. It is a society's problem, and we need to engage with it. When we did Voices, Peter at some point says that maybe the next exhibition should be about homelessness. So all that brought us to do Beyond the Threshold. I brought three pieces, one in glass because I have to say, equally ceramic and glass are my favorites, but I don't have a preference. Uh, it's really both of them I think are quite stunning. And as part of glass, there's enamel that I really like as well, which is a glass powder on a metal. So the work of Jennifer and Kelly, Little Butterflies, she presented them in large spheres that she created with barbed wire. And the butterflies are all inside the spheres. And her discussion was about something that was very, very personal for her. Her uh, daughter was going through transition, but she didn't tell them immediately. So she ended up on the street and became addicted. And Jennifer wrote, Homes is a feeling of connection. And then she continued that she said from 2021 to 2024, her and her trans daughter journeyed through 5 treatment centers and 4 hospital stays. She felt that her home was broken and that there's a shift that was needed in public understanding and prioritizing treatment is required to bring people back to health and to home. Families are navigating these challenges with little more than hope. She really felt that there was a disconnect between hospital and clinics and the needs of the families. Uh, I'm happy to say, though, that today both Jennifer and Gwen are doing very well. The piece on the right by Michael Flaherty called Wait includes actually some ceramic pieces that are kind of woven into the knitting of the blanket. And he says that it's bring together a traditional Newfoundland local chaise longue, shards of pottery, and a blanket that knits together elements of order and chaos, comfort and unease, fragments and renewal. And he says that the history of Newfoundland was fragmented and kind of disconnected with multiple events that happened, including the Confederation, the government resettlements programs, and the collapse of the cod fishery, without really engaging with the needs of the societies. And one of my favorite pieces is by Indira Singh, who is a Canadian Indian ceramic artist. She was inspired by informal settlements that she saw through her travel in India, Hong Kong, and locally in Kitchener. She writes that within these walls, you also find a deep sense of community and resilience, as she has seen in Mumbai poor outer wards and in Hong Kong's now demolished Kowloon walled city. The intervention of outsiders to move and rehouse these residents often disregards the needs of these individuals. So this year, we also celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Chance Award. Winifred Chance Awards in 2001 felt that she wanted to have a legacy by leaving an award that could be given every year to an emerging artist in ceramics. So this year, as being the 25th anniversary, we decided to do an exhibition at the Clean Glass called Excellence in Clay, 25 Years of the Winifred Chance Award. So the cover of the catalog presents a piece by Suzanne Collette, who was the first winner in 2001. Susan, as many of the winners of the Chance Award, like Junie Kim or Laurent Crass, ended up with an international career. She shipped her work all over the world, and she's been in exhibitions. And she works still works in her studio. I had recently a studio visit with her, which was totally informative because her work sometimes you got the impression that it's defied gravity somehow. And so she explained to me her techniques and how she works, and it totally makes sense. And actually, it's kind of a look more at the psychology of the human being than nature per se, although it is influenced by nature. And I said that Susan was with us. I hope I clearly talk about her work here. And on the other is we do a publication every year for the winners of the Chance Awards so that they kind of have a visiting card that they can use to promote their work. This year, the winner was Sami Tsang, who is working in ceramics, again, influenced by our own cultural heritage and the contemporary world that we live in. I part of my part of Amy's request was that I thought, where are we going? Where are we going with ceramics? So I brought the 25 winners of the Schnatz Award because I think looking at their career gave us a very good idea of where we are going with the in ceramics today. Uh, there's all kinds of approach to ceramics, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of them. Thank you for the extra time. I think I'm over time right now. Just 5 more minutes. So,
Take what time you need, Denis. We're not worried.
okay, thank you.
We love it.
So the the winners of the Chance Awards, many of them have international career. So the Chance Award is important. It's $10,000 to the winner. Uh, in the past 3 years, I was able to give $5,000 to a runner-up and then $1,000 to three other finalists. Uh, and I hope that this will continue through the years. Uh, it's really a step up for the artist to engage with serious research or to go into an important residency. I was talking about Suzanne Collette. Suzanne went to Zhengasing in China to do a 3 months residency there. I do know that there's other artists here that did similar residencies in various parts of the world. I mentioned earlier Junie Kim, who does residencies as well. Nuriel Stern, which I see the year before in 2019, wanted to go in California. Unfortunately, her residency got cut short because of the COVID. She had to come back, but she did get a few weeks there. So I think it's an important step forward. But I also was curious of what's happening with AI and 3D printing. And was that going to change the way we do things? And then out of the blue, David Correa called me in 2019. He's a professor of architecture at the University of Waterloo School of Architecture. And he was teaching a class with a 3D printer in ceramics, inviting students to consider architectural elements. So I went to visit their studio, talk with the students, and we started to do a small exhibition in the community gallery at the Clean Glass. presenting the research that those students were doing in creating architectural elements. And eventually, so those are more example. Eventually, I thought the whole thing was totally fascinating. I decided to ask David if he would do an exhibition for us for the main gallery, looking at all the different approach that are taught in terms of 3D printing and ceramics in architecture. And he did an exhibition where he invited 11 institutions, 10 Canadian, one American, to present their research in 3D printing and ceramics for architectural purposes. I also know that AI is quite popular as well with some ceramic artists. I know at some point Carol Epp was posting on Facebook her own research that she was doing with AI. And but that's more recent. So I didn't have time yet to explore it fully, but I'm quite interested uh, in the idea of using AI in terms of ceramic productions. And eventually, from this exhibition that we did with David Correa, two of his students, James Clark Hicks and Isabel Hokwa, started to create lamps. And each lamps are quite unique, and they developed 10 prototypes. And they asked me if we would present the prototypes as part of an exhibition. So we agreed. And now they're thinking to start collection and offer it online. I asked them to keep me informed because it's something that I'm really fascinated by. Because here we're not talking ceramic artists, we're talking students in architecture who fell onto this. So I know that Isabel was mentioning to me that it's something that they want to pursue. So I think it will be interesting to follow. So that's where I'm wrapping up. And if you have any questions, I will gladly try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denis. Was Deb ever able to join?
Yes, Deb is here.
Okay, so Deb, I'll let Deb take over the questioning.
Sure. And we'll just take a minute here for everybody to get settled. And Deb, I can unmute you, like.
I see her down there at the Northwest Ceramics Foundation, but I don't know why she hasn't unmuted herself.
Yeah, we'll just continue when Danae, when you're ready to answer questions, just let us know. And
I'll tell you what, I'll take over until Deb is able to come on. If anyone had any questions that they would like to put in the chat, what I'll do is I'll monitor the chat. And if you would like to speak, if you wanted to use the little button at the bottom for raising your hand, I'll try to, let's see, there's a raise your hand. If you look at mine, Amy Gogarty, you might see a little hand up. So you could use that, and I'll try to keep an eye out for you. But maybe I'll just start with a question to get us going, and everybody get up their courage to please give us some questions. Denis, I'm totally jealous of your area of the country with Quebec and Ontario and all of the interesting craft and all of the exhibitions. And it's so disappointing that ceramics are so expensive to send that your exhibitions don't come to us out west here. But I'm wondering, with Cahiers Métiers d'Art Craft Journal, that was a really excellent way to excellent way to build bridges across Canada. And I'm wondering, I really appreciate that the Clay Glass Gallery made a lot of efforts to bring people in from across Canada. I know their most recent exhibition with the Remembrance. Can you think of some other ways that we could increase communication among ceramic artists across so many of the people that you showed I was not familiar with unless they were from BC or Alberta?
Good question. Uh, it's one thing that I was hoping to be able to do at some point is to partner with galleries in different provinces, and we would have an exhibition on a theme at some point, all at the same time. And then there would be a national publication talking about all of these projects across all the provinces and the territories. I've never been able to put it together, uh, but it's something that I think could be interesting because I just see Mireille right there. She has a fabulous projects right now that she's doing. And I hope that it will make it to the clean glass, but right now it's out of my hands. But it's uh, it's a good example of projects that is right now local, but why is it not national? Uh, and I've been traveling a lot. I did the UAC conference circuits for a while, and that got me to travel. And I always been interested in meeting ceramic artists and glass artists, enamel artists when there was any, uh, and to engage with them and see if we could do something together. One of the first project I did was with three artists from Winnipeg and three artists from Montreal, and we did a small exchange exhibition. But it's very costly, as you said. The shipping is astronomous, and I've been more so recently because after COVID and all of that, how do we reconnect all together? And I was thinking of that project that may be trying to connect, but there's some provinces I couldn't find any galleries. And that was kind of a bit of a turnoff for me. So I thought, okay, maybe that's not the solution. Uh, it's and publications, you were talking about Cahiers Métiers d'Art, is very difficult, very costly. Uh, Not a lot of support. Uh, there is grants that you can get at the Canada Council, for example, of the arts, but they want three publication a year. I had the energy only to do two a year. So that did help us a lot, but not sufficiently in the end. So it's difficult. It's a big country that we have, but that's why I decided to do some national exhibition, a way to change with the shipping. For example, Remembrance, you mentioned Remembrance. Uh, we limited the size of the pieces so that it could be mail. But then Canada Post decided to go on strike. So it's uh, it's what we have to cope with. But it's I think there's ways around it, but I'm not there anymore. But I'd like to participate into making it happen. I'd like to see when I arrived, the Wilfred Chance Award was not well known across the country. It was in places more than others. So we try to expand on that. We use akimbo and uh, but it's a problem.
Yeah, I know I was happy with the Winifred Chance. I recognized a lot of the artists who are from this region. So I think they make a real effort to get the information out. And in terms of Mireille's piece, there's a wonderful lecture by Jennifer Sullivan coming up on the from the Canadian Decorative Arts Society. So Mireille, do you know what date that is? I forget what date it is, but if you go on the website for the Canadian Society for Decorative Arts, Jennifer will be giving it because it is a wonderful series of works that should be seen more widely. Did anyone else have? Here we go with a question. I'll just read it from Susan Collette. Why do you think now, over any other time in history, has ceramics come into the fine arts realm finally? Referencing the current show in Montreal at Galerie Nicolas Robert. Susan? Susan, do you want to put on your video? Did you?
The
Do you know which exhibition this is?
Oh yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
At the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, there is they redid their decorative arts wings, but at the same time, Galerie Nicolas Robert seems to be interested into doing presenting ceramics. And there's another gallery in Montreal who also has a satellite in Quebec City. And I'm trying to remember the name uh, of the gallerist who does represent Laurent Crasse, for example, and other ceramic artists. Amélie Proux is also with him. Uh, and it's a good question, Susan. It's uh, it's interesting because it seems to be quite more Canadian thing than anything else. I was at some point talking with somebody who was talking about Islamic art. Well, that's include pots and pans and vases and they see that as all art. Uh, Indigenous people sees everything they do as art, anything that is a creative output. So in Canada, and in Quebec in particular, that's why I studied it more. There's been a division at some point where craft was sent to Cégep and art was sent to university, which eventually create a divide between the two. And to me, I always look at anything that is handmade and I see it as art. My grandmother's quilt is her form of expression and it's art because it's her own design. It's not the pattern that she takes. And so it's, I guess more and more people are understanding it that way. And I think that's refreshing. I think that's important. I'd like to see more happening. And but I think there's a, a moment right now, I think, in ceramics and glass, and we should join the wagon and uh, push it as far as we can so that we never go back to what was before. Uh, and not because somebody will do. There was somebody shared with me actually today a basket weaver talking about his art form and how he used to go to various places and they kept talking about craft. And he thought, okay, I need to do something about that because it's not craft. It's art. Every single piece is unique. Every single piece has a concept behind. Every single piece is my own idea. So it was interesting to listen to him. It was a very short clip from the MacArthur Foundation in the States, in Chicago. And very interesting man talking about his baskets as being art. And I totally agree with him. They are art pieces. They're stunning. So I think I'm glad to see that it's more and more happening. And I'll continue to push on my side for it to happen more often. Does that answer your question, Susan?
You're muted, yeah, but we had a little comment from Deb, which is about the fact that the Vancouver Art Gallery now has two ceramic exhibitions. One, John Lawrence's collection, the other one, Otani Workshop exhibition from Japan. So if you are, I think they were extended until January. So if you're out this way,
Cool.
does anyone else have any more questions or comments? I hate to let Denis go because there's so many things I'd like to ask him, but I don't want to. I
Go
guess
ahead, Amy.
one thing I wanted to ask, do you see there being anything like a Canadian craft aesthetic, or do you feel that it's so diverse and we're not that connected well that it's just happenstance that people are Canadian, or?
It's interesting because that's a bit what we were looking at with Naked Craft. And I'm working on a project right now, and I'm looking for a gallery if anybody knows a gallery that could be interested for an exchange between Canada and Scotland uh, about aesthetic and identity. Is there such a thing as a Scottish aesthetic or a Canadian aesthetics or an American aesthetics? Or is it more personal, but still influenced by the location where we are. So the project is called The Power of Place, and what the place does to your identity. I know I talk with artists, and at some point I was talking with Junie Kim, for example, and her work is very much interested in this idea of identity and the place. Uh, and she is an artist that is part of that project. I was exchanging 2 days ago with an artist in Scotland who uh, we do have indigenous nations here in Canada, but they don't have it in Scotland. But she was from Ireland, and she says, "Well, am I indigenous in Ireland and immigrant in Scotland? Like, what does that mean?" And it was a very interesting, more questions than answers, but very interesting conversation on what does that mean, all of that. And when I told her the history here of the indigenous nations that were really hard done by Canadian governments and churches and all of that, she was appalled and she couldn't believe it. Uh, and she, of course, heard about it through the newspapers and everything, but she didn't realize how serious it was
Mm.
and that we need to come to terms with it. So, all that to say, uh, I don't know if there's such a thing as a Canadian aesthetics. Uh, I like I think there's a sense of individuality that we have here that maybe is tied to freedom of speech and all of that, that everybody approached their art in a very unique way. And I don't see any constant from one artist to the next. Uh, and that's what I like. I think that's what makes it so special.
Mm.
Uh, I see Susan there, I see Mireille. They're both artists. They're both doing fabulous things. Very different, very, very different. I see Gabrielle, who is an enamelist, uh, working also. And again, very different approach, and yet all valid, all conceptually strong, all technically strong. So I think that's what makes maybe the Canadian aesthetic. It's the uniqueness of all of the artists.
That's interesting. Yeah. I had one more question, and that was if I keep looking, I'm not seeing more questions from people. So please put your hands up unless I'm missing you. Tell me in the chat. Um, I think it's very interesting that particularly your latest few exhibitions have really focused on social issues, homelessness, diversity, and I'm wondering whether you think there's something unique to craft that enables it to speak more directly or personally to the kinds of social issues that are besetting us.
I think there's many artists who are engaging with social issues in different ways. Uh, I think it's just not ceramics per se. Uh, I did glass exhibition that also engaged with some of these ideas. Uh, I felt, and I still do feel, that museums are not neutral. That's a big fat lie. We do take decisions that will affect the perception of the public when they visit the gallery. Uh, and that needs to be changed and challenged. And it may be what I wanted to do with even Confine and Voices and Beyond the Threshold. Uh, and I think that museum can play a role in changing the perceptions. We did a project at the gallery. We had, when I was there, a program called Serving Experiences, where we invited community group to come to the gallery. And while doing a clay activity with an instructor, talk to us about their experience living in the Waterloo region. The Waterloo region is a very expensive one. Uh, it's very wealthy on one hand with the technology sectors who hires lots of people, but that creates a problem because then there's a shortage of houses and apartments, which makes them very expensive eventually. Uh, I've never been able to move to Waterloo. I couldn't afford it. Uh, a house similar to the one that I have here in Hamilton was almost double the price in Waterloo, exactly the same size. So uh, that tells a lot about the region. So we wanted to invite groups. And at some point, somebody talked to me about a better tent city. A better tent city is a place where homeless people can have an address, a shower, access to a bedroom, access to a meal, and at the same time, uh, have a little home. So it's very small homes, a very, very small little unit where they have a bedroom, which is air conditioning in the summer, heated in the winter. And we invited them to come to the gallery. So at first they were reticent. So we thought, okay, well, go to you. So we went to a Better Tent City in their community little room and did ceramics with them. And what happened, it's was quite humbling. And hearing the stories, because very often people say, oh, he's a drunk, that's why he's homeless. No, there's some people who had real bad luck in life.
Mm.
Uh, and that's how they ended up on the street. I talked earlier about Jennifer's daughter, Gwen, for example. When you're hard done in life and you don't have the tools, you don't have necessarily what's needed to get the help that you need, you might end up homeless. So that was one thing that they shared with us. But what they shared with us the most when doing the activities is that they felt they were seen
Mm.
and listened to. And they said that that was making them feeling that they belong somewhere. Because when you end up on the street, how many people ignore them and don't even look at them? How many people really engage with an homeless person? It doesn't happen. Let's be real. It rarely happens. So through that activity that we did with them, that was the main thing, being seen, being heard, and having a sense of belonging somewhere. So eventually we continued with them and invited them to come and do Christmas ornaments and ceramics.
Oh, wow.
And we did sell them and give them the whole amount of money. We didn't keep anything. We just give them the whole proceeds to give them some revenues. And that continues. Like there was more projects even after I left to engage them and to do something that they could sell, a product, and kind of give them a chance to build some kind of career or at least as a sideline, if it's not as a career, but to generate some revenues. And through a better density, they have an address, so they have support. They can apply for social services, they can apply. So that's slowly changing. And eventually, they can graduate. I don't like the term, but that's the term that was used to having a one-bedroom apartment
Mhm.
and that's reasonably priced, and then put their life back together. And there's quite a few success story of people who eventually went back to work full time, now have an apartment, now have a social life. And there's similar projects in the States. And curiously, while I was writing my essay for Beyond the Threshold catalog, I came across an article in La Presse talking about a similar project in Texas where there was 400 residents
Oh,
now, and they wanted to bring that to 1900 residents. And it's the same things that people were talking about that were interviewed. It's the sense of belonging, it's the sense to have a community, it's the sense to belong somewhere and having connection, social connection. So that helped them the most to get out of homelessness. So I think that museums and art gallery can play a role because lots of artists works on those social issues in their work. They need the places to present it.
well, I'm about to let you go, but we have one quick question that did come up on the chat, so I feel obligated. It's from D. Wood. As someone who writes about craft, how can the community encourage writing about craft and bring more recognition to major media publications?
It's been my battle for the past 25 years. It's it's a constant battle. I still do it. I'm writing right now a profile following a studio visit for ceramics art and perception. I do it more and more because not a lot of people are doing it. And at the same time, Ceramics on Perception, I love the magazine. It's a great magazine. They don't pay. So I need to find another avenue to pay my rent kind of idea. So it's difficult. Uh, at some point I thought, okay, I'll do a blog. Uh, when I stopped doing Cahiers Messier, I just couldn't keep it going. I wasn't putting money from my own pocket into it. And, how much money can I lose at some point to realize that maybe it's not a need that we have. The number of subscriber was not that high. Uh, so I just couldn't carry it anymore. Uh, I thought, okay, I'll start a blog and do it that way. But again, that doesn't pay. That won't pay that my grocery or my electricity bill. Uh, it's a constant battle, and I don't know how to change that. I've been having conversations for the past 25 years on that issue, and the interest is there. I mean, there is some writer. I saw that Dee Wood was with us. Dee is a great writer and editor. Actually, she edited the book that's coming out in supposedly November or December. I think now, I think it's online already, but not the paper copy is coming later. It's not her first one. She did edit before that another book about craft is political. So there are people who want to write about it. Uh, where do we publish? Where do we go? Can we make a living out of it? Or should it be something that we do on Saturday morning while starting our weekend free and as a volunteer? Uh, I don't know. It's a very good question, but it's been my battle for 25 years. So
Well, thank you so very, very much. It's been a great talk, and I know people have really gotten so much from you, and the recording will go up, and we should let you go because it's late in Ontario.
oh,
But
that's okay.
thank you to everyone who's joined us. We really appreciate it. And just to let you know, in the spring, we will have two artists from Australia at different times, and that should be very interesting. Julie Bartholomew and Peter Wilson. So we'll get you to get our little newsletter and keep you up to date. But thank you again so much, and have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Denis.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you. It was superb.
Merci.
To get out. Okay.